For the rest of this hour, a little bit into the next hour, Doug Hagmann is going to be our guest. He has a long bio, but the best thing to do is to go over to his website. We'll put that up on screen for viewers, not just radio listeners. Douglas J. Hagmann is a founder and director of the Northeast Intelligence Network and CEO of a multi-state licensed private investigative agency serving more than many Fortune 500 clients. A 27-year veteran of conducting investigations in the private sector, he has logged over 50,000 hours of covert surveillance in his career and is the author of Tactical Surveillance. He is a member of the International Counter-Terrorism Officers Association and possesses many law enforcement-related training certifications. He has been used as an operational asset by the U.S. Department of Justice, the FBI, as well as the Pennsylvania and New York State police agencies. Hagmann has performed over 8,000 civil and criminal investigations throughout the United States and is also certified in forensic discipline of bloodstain pattern analysis. During his career, Hagmann has developed numerous federal enforcement contacts and has become aware of irregularities within the U.S. government. He attempts to inform the public of what is taking place inside the government through his regular appearances on Coast to Coast AM and numerous other syndicated radio talk shows across the U.S. In addition to his website, he is senior contributor to Canada's Free Press, and he also is routinely on with Neil Cavito on Fox. And I'll just leave it at that. He's also the co-host of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. And I saw this article last week, and I keep meaning to get him on, but just years go by like seconds now, as everybody knows. I mean, years go by like weeks, basically, to be technical. It's just amazing. But I saw this article, "We are preparing for mass civil war," says DHS informant. And I saw that and then, read some other reports coming out from Mr. Hagmann. I wanted to get him on to break this down for us and tell us what his sources are telling him. I mean, we obviously see 450 million 40 cal bullets being bought, hundreds of millions of others, agencies that shouldn't even be armed getting riot shotguns, police stations being hardened in government documents ahead of civil unrest, the military's training even mechanics in civil unrest in every branch, military checkpoints, TSA checkpoints, admissions for preparations for civil unrest, massive drills everywhere to acclimate. And then you have the NDAA, signal disappear citizens. We have this new FEMA camp, re-education camp document that the Army now confirms today is real. Yeah, folks, it's real, okay? And we have Army sources that said, yeah, it's in there. It says it's classified. And then we had people calling up saying, well, it's actually posted here. Yeah, if you had the classification to log in and get it. So all of that's going on. Doug, tell us about your website a little bit and how folks go to that. And then tell us about yourself and then your awakening to the progression of what's happened in this country. And, of course, the big news. What are they gearing up for?
Well, thanks, Alex. And thank you very much for that fine introduction. Most of all, I'm very proud. I guess my proudest accomplishment is to be an info warrior, classify myself as an info warrior. Follow your website, follow your information. You're 100% right on all the time. My website is homelandsecurityus.com. Not affiliated with any government agency. We are a private, independent, investigative agency. That's who we are. We also have a nightly radio broadcast called the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Attempt to emulate you, Alex, in the attempt to spread the information that we've been finding out lately about what is going on, what is taking place, in our case, behind FEMA Region 3. We'll say we're deep inside FEMA Region 3. But to educate the population as to what's taking place with respect to our government, which is just totally gone berserk now. I mean, we have, Alex, everything that you have said in your programs over the last several years, since I've started listening, has come to pass. When people were calling you crazy for what you were saying, and people were saying, nah, it can't be. It's coming to pass right now. We're seeing it. We're verifying it. We've got people talking to us saying, hey, listen to Alex. Listen to what Alex is saying. And people coming to us and saying, look, we've got information for you. And here it is. And here's what's taking place. What's taking place is the United States government, the Department of Homeland Security, is turning inward on the American people. They are declaring war on the American people. And that's what it is, Alex. That's exactly what it is. People wonder why the NDAA was passed. People wonder why, the various executive orders were passed. People wonder why the ammunition was purchased. People have a tendency to look at things in vacuums, but when you start connecting the dots, you can see what's taking place.
Mobile armored pillboxes?
Yes, yes. And you've pointed this out, and you've been at the tip of the spear pointing this out. And I got to tell you, frankly, okay, as an investigator for 27 years, I've had a lot of doubts. I had a lot of doubts about the legitimacy of this information. And I fell for that right-left paradigm, that fictitious right-left paradigm. Now I've seen, look, it's all been a farce. It's first of all, TSA is nothing more than security theater at this point. We are living in an Orwellian dream at this point, and this has nothing to do about security. Everything to do about control of the American populace and conditioning of the American populace. Everything you've been talking about in your program, this is coming to pass.
Well, amazing, and I mean, thank you for supporting the broadcast. I just ran into the information firsthand by going to some drills 15, 16 years ago and then discovered all this. But getting into all of your contacts, because you brought out a lot of amazing information on a routine basis, what are your contacts telling you now about the acceleration of all of this?
I've got one contact in particular that I've been in contact with. I've known since 1979, a good friend of mine. I'll leave it at that. He works very close to he works within the complex of the DHS, under the umbrella of the DHS. Let's put it that way. And he's aware of information that has been developing over the last, we'll say, 2 years, but has been accelerating over the last several months to the extent that what Obama is planning on doing. I mean, Obama can see the writing on the wall. There's dissatisfaction. There's unemployment. There's people that are going hungry in this country. There's civil discord. All of this is taking place. He can see the writing on the wall. It doesn't look good for his election. But these people have no plans on leaving, Alex. And I'm telling you right now, the people who rioted in the 1960s, the Bill Ayers and the Bernardine Dorns, who were actually the protesters in the 60s and early 70s, the Weather Underground, these are the people who Obama has by his side right now. These are the people who are my sources saying, look, what these people are doing. For example, Trayvon Martin, they're using this as a catalyst for racial unrest.
NBC edited the tape to make it sound racist, and the Justice Department got caught with moles fomenting the new Black Panthers in people. I mean, they really are trying to get a race war.
Exactly, they are, and they're working toward that goal, but they're also looking toward the economic factors, and this is something that's so important that people really need to understand. What's going on in Europe right now, today, is coming to America. We're facing this massive hyperinflation, or this massive economic collapse in this country. I mean, your guest, Gerald Celente, right on the money with his information. This is coming to America, and I'll tell you what, DHS knows this. They know that they can't stop this. They know that the dollar is going to collapse. They know that because of this, there's going to be class warfare, and that's the other leg of the table. And so when you have the racial component combined with the economic component, the class warfare, I'm going to tell you, they're expecting riots. They're expecting, not only expecting it, but they're seeding they're actually seeding it. For example, they've got, my source is telling me, according to the information that he's found, for example, Louis Farrakhan and others, now he would not name others, but others are on the payroll of the CIA. This is what my source is saying, allegedly, okay? Allegedly, Farrakhan is on the payroll of the CIA. Why? For what purpose? Well, to enhance and to facilitate the discord, the racial discord in this country. That's what's taking place. But they know they can't stop the collapse of the dollar. Obama, Bernanke working together to tank the dollar, the U.S. dollar, on purpose. I mean, they are destroying this country, and they're not going to leave until they're done. Well, when I say destroying the country, they're fundamentally changing the country, of course, in the words of Obama, changing it to a Marxist society.
Which is destroying the country.
Exactly, exactly. It's just, you know, and my source is telling me this. Look, in 1965, the Watts riots, 34 dead, 1,000 injured. In the 68 riots, I guess we had, I don't know, close to 100 dead. In the Rodney King riots, we had 53 dead. $1 billion in property damage. the riots that are coming this summer, that are expected this summer, that are going to be enhanced by the actions of the government this summer. And you've pointed a lot of this stuff out. People need to listen to you very carefully, because you give a lot of facts out. But it's amazing. Now, they're going to pale in comparison to what's coming this summer if the timetable is correct. And by
the way, we've always heard this in bad economic times, but the murders and the racial attacks and the craziness and people on edge, I'm seeing it everywhere. And I live in the wealthiest per capita city rated by Forbes, Austin, and it's already bad here. I can't imagine Southern California, Michigan, places like that, Florida. I mean, it's going to be a powder keg.
Indeed it is. And that's what they're counting on. And you know, again, this whole thing is coming. It's going to come like a tsunami. It's going to hit us like a ton of bricks. There's a lot of people. You've woken up a lot of people, Alex, and thank you for that. But there are a lot of people who just have no clue, no idea. And one thing my source did tell me that I was very concerned about is the fact that, you know, of course, we all know about the FEMA camps that don't exist. Of course they do. They're disaster relief centers, according to, you know, their names. People, when they get hungry and they're unprepared, they're going to flock to these camps. And in fact, there's a book called How to Kill 11 Million People, and it's 67 pages long. I can't remember who wrote it, but the bottom line is this.
Stay there. I want to hear about your source on the FEMA camps. Exactly. They implode society, like the communists always say, by design, to then rebuild it. And again, the mega banks want the communism to destroy the republic to then bring in their new system of control. But that's exactly what we're talking about here. And they are really attempting to set this off. We'll get the FEMA camp information from our guest source on the other side. Stay with us. If you believe in this information and want to support its viral spread, go to the InfoWars store at InfoWars.com. We've got the new G.I. Joe InfoWars T-shirts. We've got the incredible ProPure gravity-fed filters available at InfoWars.com in the store. We've got a new DVD, Scientists Under Attack, the Don't Tread on Me flag. We've got all sorts of different bumper stickers to help spread the rebellion virally. It's all there, wristbands, citizen rule books in every order. Order online at InfoWars.com today. The water filters, the canteens, it's all there, InfoWars.com. Get into the preparations, what your sources are telling you. You were getting into the FEMA camps, which they admit in the Emergency Centers Establishment Act will be the new community. They implode things, pay to ship the jobs overseas, people flood in. Then there's got to be a prison area for troublemakers in the community, protesters and people, and that's the sub-camp areas. So that's how they're going to roll these out. We already see it in California and other areas where they lock the homeless up at night. But let's continue breaking down what your source told you.
Well, according to my source, and he said, look, the DHS brass, they know this is coming. There's no stopping it, and it's going to be a lot easier, if possible, to have these people, in general, masses, willingly go to these disaster relief centers for their food, because you're not going to be able to buy food. You're not going to be able to do any banking. You're not going to be able to. I mean, we're going to be things are going to be in gridlock, and when people get hungry, they get desperate. So they're going to go do what the government tells them to do. If there's food at these disaster relief centers, great. They're counting on a lot of people to respond appropriately, to go to these centers for the food.
And then in phase one, the camps will be our saviors. Phase two, take the politicals. But I'm sorry, please continue.
No, I mean, you're exactly right. And then now you've been running during your program the in 1982 documentary with Larry Grathwohl saying, well, there's going to be this mass extermination of people. Ultimately, that's their plan. And people are like, this normalcy bias is taking them over. And again, 27 years as an investigator, I'm a hard sell on this kind of stuff. I'm thinking, wait a minute, this can't be happening. But it is happening. Everything you've said is true. What they're saying is, okay, once these people, once we have them separated, manipulated. And those who don't go, there will be mass arrests. They'll be treated differently if they're taken anywhere at all, if they're not dropped at the end of their driveway. And the bottom line is, then they're going to have control of everyththing. But here's the key, real quickly. Here's the key. Obama does not want to relinquish power. Valerie Jarrett does not want to relinquish power. Cass Sunstein, all these people, all these unappointed czars, don't want to relinquish power at all and don't plan on it. So they're planning on this economic collapse, this racial divide, this economic chaos, panic, riots, and so on and so forth, as a pretext to potentially suspend the elections. We've already seen the trial balloon with Governor Susan Perdue, I believe her name is, out of one of the Carolinas, talking about suspending congressional elections. They've had their eye on that. They're looking at that, according to my source, saying, well, what was the reaction? Could this possibly be? Indeed. But this is what they want to do. They want to stay in power one way or another. And Obama knows that his numbers aren't good. Obama knows that satisfaction is bad. But again, and one of the thing that my source did say, and he's experienced in profiling, by the way, the forensic profiling, he says, does this look like a man who expects to be going anywhere after this election? Of course not. I mean, look at the lavish vacations that they're taking. Look at the way he's spending money. I mean, $5 trillion he's added to the debt. It's just incredible. So we can see this coming. According to my source, DHS is aware of this and not stopping it. Instead of not stopping it, they're facilitating it.
And by the way, I was told this a year ago by sources, and then now it's been in the news that they gave them, $3 billion of additional funding to set up TSA all over the country from the beta test they had going in 10 states at the time. And now we've confirmed through other sources that these big armored lockers with the riot gear, the weapons, are being delivered and they're being cached. I've talked to military. These giant processions of Bradley fighting vehicles, freshly painted and ready for the U.S., are being cached at secondary armories because the system's afraid the public may take the regular armories. I've talked to military that whenever Texas was about to throw the TSA out, which the feds know is their Vanguard takeover arm that will expand out onto the streets, their little administrative tattletale squad, that on top of that, that the military was standing by to invade Texas, and then it came out they were going to have a blockade of the airways. I mean, this is already happening. They're already geared up.
And people don't understand this. You're exactly right. I mean, and then we look at the attempts to control the internet, ACTA, CISPA, SOPA, and so on, PIPA. Look, this is all about control and specific control. And I understand we're up against it.
Yeah, stay there. Wow. Sure. But can we expose this and have them back off is the question. We'll be right back with our guest, Doug Hagmann. I'm Alex Jones, Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.tv. Sick of the globalists, eugenicists, control freaks adding poison to your water and laughing as you get sick and die? Start purifying your water with ProPure. My friends, I've done a lot of research, and the best gravity filter out there, bar none, is ProPure, and it's available discounted at Infowars.com. Its filters are silver impregnated to prevent bacterial growth. There's no priming required. It's NSF 42 certified. Optional fluoride filters can reduce fluoride up to 95%. Easy to set up and use. Doesn't require electricity. Purify water from lakes, streams, ponds, and wells. This filter system leaves in beneficial minerals, which is key. Save money by not buying bottled water and avoid BPA that leaches from the plastic. ProPure is the best gravity-fed filter out there. It's what my family uses. Infowars.com already has the lowest price on ProPure, but if you add the promo code WATER at checkout, you get an additional 10% off at Infowars.com. You can also call to order 888-253-3139. We're going to be taking your phone calls for Doug Hagmann, director of the Northeast Intelligence Network. And look, all I know is I've studied history, and this is repeating itself, and government doesn't care anymore. Government doesn't care if Corzine steals billions. Before, anybody would have gotten in trouble. They don't care if hand grenades get shipped to Mexico and they get caught. Nobody gets in trouble. They don't care on any fronts anymore. And they come out and go, yeah, we're torturing people. Yeah, we'll secretly arrest you. The CIA director comes out and says, yeah, we're listening to everybody without warrants. Folks, it's illegal for the CIA to even operate domestically, much less be saying, yeah, we spy on you at a public tech conference and laughing about it and saying all your appliances, you're paying for new tech in them to track you and the smart meters. Ha ha. You know, 5 years ago, the smart meters won't control your house. Oh, yeah, we're going to control your temperature and it spies on you. Now, shut up. This is an attempt, like a pimp breaks a young prostitute, to literally break our will. I don't think it's working. In fact, I know it's not. I mean, the previous record was like 2 million guns sold in 1 month. What was that, 3.5 years ago? When Obama was first getting in. Now I saw a number of 5 million in 1 month. 3 of the major manufacturers have said we can't sell guns, 1 for 6 months, 1 for a year. They're that back-ordered. I mean, all of this is going on. Most of the military I talked to are awake. A lot of the police, and that's what's happening. Because people, before me, I don't need any thanks, as Doug's thanking me, others saw this from the inside and talked about it. I mean, I heard people 20 years ago when I was first waking up saying there's plans to bring in foreign troops. And I'm like, Admiral Yamamoto said that there'd be somebody with a rifle behind every blade of grass. The Japanese do that, but not if it's posing as our own government and responding to a staged crisis like economic or nuclear or biological. And then there's all these White House memos by Shapiro and others saying, Mr. President, a new Oklahoma City or 9/11 will help us take over. And then other memos that even Glenn Beck covered, and by the way, that's what got him fired, was when he said they're planning and pointed at Obama a new Oklahoma City. Fox is like, Beck, you're off the air. That's it. Get out of here. And I had that from Fox sources. Boy, that caused a big furor when I had those sources. And now I don't have one of those sources. I have some other sources, though. The point is that there is an attempt. They're thinking about doing this, but it's a catch-22. If we expose them, they get scared because they're criminals and want to carry it out. But if we don't expose them, they go ahead and do it. So then why do we expose it? Because at least people are awake. At least we know they're coming to our house. And I mean that literally and figuratively. They would like to have this implosion. They would like to have this race war. But the Trayvon Martin thing didn't go the way they wanted. I think they're going with a model they use in the Soviet Union and other areas. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work. Now, if they launch a war, people tend to get patriotic and think that a war is patriotic, get behind that and kind of shut up and go along with it. But the plans to go around and arrest political dissidents and people that they think are leaders across the political spectrum, that is going to result in massive resistance. And again, I'm not some macho guy that's like, let's just have a war with the military and police. I know, by the way, they're going to lose that war, but they're meant to, you see. And then I see NLE09, all these Washington Post and admitting, oh, foreign troops are going to help fight American terrorists and uprisings. That's now in hundreds of publications. So it's gone from being a secret program and training videos we got from Cooperative Nugget in 93, 95, 96, and urban warfare drills I went to after that. And generals announcing you're the forces of the New World Order and training in mock U.S. towns. I had to go see this myself and went, and in some cases had to infiltrate. You know, I'm not going to get into all of it, but, well, you've seen the footage. The point is to show you this information. So I knew there was a program under Clinton to do this. But now it is going into an operational phase, is my point. And I know I'm ranting, Doug. If you've got time, I'll keep it a little bit in the next hour because I'm taking away from it here. But please don't thank me anymore. Just break down what your intel is, how all these dots connect, and then I'm going to give the number out, 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. Give us more of what your sources. I know you have a lot of them. What else they're telling you on multi-fronts? But you were getting into how they plan to roll this out. What about that question? Will we be able, if we expose this enough, to cause them to not be able to implement this?
Great question. That's the only reason my source came to me with this information and said, look, get the word out there, because if we don't do anything, then it's almost a done deal. But if we can start talking about it, start exposing it, perhaps they will take a step backward. And what we talked about, and this is extremely important, what my source made sure that he wanted me to mention this. Alex, you recall Thanksgiving 2010 and 2009 when they, or 2010, I believe it was, when the TSA stood down with the body scanners because of the opt-out day, the protest.
November 2010, yes, sir.
Okay, now, they looked at that, and that bothered them tremendously. There were multiple meetings about this, and I'm telling you, your program caused, and your exposure caused them to step back and do this.
And drudge, too.
Exactly. Well, here's the thing. This, the whole TSA security theater, and this is what people need to understand. If the average American will put up with being sexually groped and nuked at an airport, or just to travel, or go into a mall or a stadium, or just to fly, they'll accept almost anything. That is their mindset. And that's why that had such an adverse effect on them, and sort of sent them back in time. They didn't expect the reaction. They expected everyone to be grope-a-dopes. To this point now that it's again, the conditioning has made everyone grope-a-dopes. And according to my source, they're saying, okay, now that we got people back in line and people back accepting the fact that they've got to be sexually molested, now we can go forward. Okay, now, so again, if everyone stood up and said, no, we're not going to submit, we're not going to comply, that would certainly set their timetable back. But that was one particular point in time when the DHS brass, Pistoli in particular, being the head of the TSA, was absolutely outraged, according to the information we have. And this came from someone who was very close to Pistoli at the time.
If you'll let somebody grab your wife's breast and your genitals and molest your children and laugh at you and pull them aside while they cry, which I mean, I've seen it myself, they get off on it. If you'll put up with that, you'll let them come to your house and search and set up a checkpoint and take you away. And that's what this is prisoner training.
Exactly. Yeah, all of this has nothing to do with security. Or it's all about conditioning. It's all about getting people comfortable with seeing as you point out, the troops in the streets with the black masks and the paramilitary rifles and gear and what have you. Look, none of this is law enforcement. It's paramilitary, and we are supposed to be what my source is saying. They are doing this in incremental stages in order for us to be conditioned to see this across the country. Well,
that's the thing. You can see the rollout. You know it's a PR campaign. And for somebody who's watching and knows, it's ridiculous, and it's 100% being done in a wicked, evil fashion. I mean, this is a premeditated, total, soft martial law rollout.
Exactly. Now, I want to say one thing. You mentioned something about Trayvon Martin. According to my source, that Trayvon Martin case, there was a lot of exculpatory evidence that was omitted from the affidavits. The affidavit was written in a passive voice. There were a lot of problems. There's overcharging there. There's potential prosecutorial misconduct by Angela Corey, alleged with respect to suborning perjury and what have you, and this is done by the good graces and with the approval with the approval of Eric Holder. I mean, she's taken her marching orders directly from Eric Holder. So the outcome of whether it's an acquittal of Zimmerman in the Trayvon Martin case, or there's something lesser. I mean, they overcharged Zimmerman, and they were told to do that. Basically, attempting to throw the verdict to assure the outrage when Zimmerman walks, and they expect him to walk. I'm not sure if I made that point clear or not.
And then they can control the trial so they can trigger that when they want as the pretext for the race riots.
Exactly. You got it right on the money. And that's what my source is telling me. And he said, look, don't underestimate the outcome either way of the Zimmerman situation. Now, it's my understanding, too, and I just got this yesterday, that the family of Zimmerman, there's some things going on in the background with this. I don't know if his family's been threatened. I mean, obviously, they've been threatened, but in terms of, no matter what happens, you just keep your mouth shut, to the family, that is. So there's something not right there, okay? That's that. I'm just trying to think here. I lost my train of thought, but you get where we're going with this. I mean, it's a three-legged stool, and in the middle of this is this. And the other thing too, Alex, is everyone knows, and it's 535 congressmen and senators. You know, they ceded power to 13 people. Why did they do that? You know, why are more people saying, hey, wait a minute, this is unconstitutional? We heard Judge Napolitano talk about this, but the very people who are affected by it aren't talking. What's going on with that? Well, according to my source, look, there are active threats everywhere. Remember, and my source told me this, remember the FBI files from the Clinton years? What do you think was in those? I mean, there was a lot of information, and just the files that we know about. There was more files taken by the Clintons. The Clintons, by the way, have never ceded power in Washington. They are still in power. To this day, they're still in power and still calling the shots. But they're part of the globalist oligarchy that are behind the puppet master. And Obama, and everyone knows Obama, by the way, is illegitimate. He is not constitutionally eligible. And people try to trivialize that. Well, they shouldn't, because it's not really about a piece of paper, about a birth certificate. It's about allegiance. Who is this guy?
Well, let me expand on that. We've got the super committee you're talking about, yes, with 12 members of Congress and the president. You've got the president saying, I've got the UN to launch war. You've got the Joint Chiefs of Staff telling Congress when they're questioned that, no, we take our orders from the UN now. Unbelievable treason with a capital T. I mean, it isn't even a strong enough word. It's so naked. We've got governors' councils running things. We've got rural councils. We're going to ban kids doing chores. I mean, they are moving on every front in an attempt to overwhelm people. What are your other sources saying? What else should we be looking at? I mean, why is Congress just handing everything over and letting the military come in and really act like Eddie Haskells and be very arrogant towards them?
Well, look, I do know that there are a lot of Congress people, according to my sources, who have got a lot of skeletons in the closet, and now they're pretty big skeletons too. Okay, and of course they know that if they go against the grain as well of the so-called establishment party or their their higher ups, of course there's going to be trouble. But the fact of the matter is, the reason they're making the decisions that they have been making is because they've been flat out threatened. I mean, it's one thing to be threatened with, hey, you're not going to get reelected next time, but it's another thing to be threatened, hey, you know, we know about your wife, we know about your children, we know this, we know that. And that's the kind of, that's the field in which we are playing, according to the sources I've got. And one thing, too, that ties into what you were talking about that military directive, and you were named by name, according to my source, for bringing this out, but there are certain aspects of this, the Social Security aspect of this military directive, this directive is a nightmare, according to my source, a nightmare that this thing ever got out, written in 2010, and all of a sudden now, bam, it's out. A nightmare. And of course,
and you're talking about the re-education camps for American document.
Yeah, FM 339-40 or 3-39.40. The document you were talking about earlier. It is meant for American citizens, obviously. Page 168 of this, again.
And is he saying they're pretty freaked out that that's out?
Yeah, and yes, absolutely. And look, it came out on your program, mentioned you by name, and because how that came about was I had a conversation yesterday evening, and said I'm scheduled to be on with you today, and hey, well, guess what? I mean, this guy freaked a lot of people out here at the high levels of government.
Let me ask you a question: why do you think I'm still alive and they haven't killed me or set me up? I mean, they've tried a few times and threatened me, but why do you think I'm still alive? I mean, for the reason Jim Garrison said that once you're public enough, they think it'll actually draw too much attention if they kill me or set me up?
Exactly. I believe you are still alive only because of the level of your exposure, and truly, that's what I believe. I mean, I think if you suddenly died, if you got Breitbarted tomorrow, there would be such an outcry from the people who follow you, who understand what you're all about, that they don't want to drag more attention to themselves at all. And I think, you know what else? I think there's an element of spirituality here too. Look, we're fighting pure evil here, pure evil. So I do think that God is on your side as well. But that's just my opinion.
Oh, I know that, and that's why I don't have any fear. But it's also, again, 50 years ago, people from inside government came out and said all this was coming, and they got killed, they got in prison, because the system wanted to contain it. The info's out now, and they just want to assassinate my character for my idiosyncrasies and things. And so they want to try to do that. If they kill me, it will martyr me. But why did they do Breitbart then? Well, our intel was that they didn't release what was really going to be released, obviously from threats and things. He was saying it's weather undermen, it's meetings with communists. It's basically the re-education camp info is what I'm being told in similar areas. But he had witnesses. He'd had dinner with the head of the weathermen a month before he died. And so that's when they kill you. If you've got film of Obama, you know, in bed with a goat or whatever, I'm not saying I really have that, folks, that's a joke, that's when they send a hit team to kill you. But if you're just somebody up there generally talking about the info, they just try to assassinate your name.
And that's been happening so much lately to a lot of people, a lot of great people. I've been marginalized by, and you're correct. I mean, under Cass Sunstein and others, there are people who did nothing, and this is verified by my source. They are paid to sit at computers all day long and use screen name, anonymous names, and go in and cause trouble, foment insurrection in forums and political forums on both sides of the aisle, and just disrupt everything, hijack what they call hijacking threads. This is what they do, and especially attacking the character, maligning the character of people like yourself. I mean, you know, it's incredible that we've actually have in this government disinformation agents that are actually being paid to sit at home, you know, in their jammies on the internet, doing this.
And by the way, as you mentioned, that's declassified. That's in the news, and they've even got sophisticated megaphone robots, is what they call them, programs that go out and pose as people. We'll be right back with our guest. Hope you can stay a little bit in the next hour. Can you do that, Doug?
Sure, thank you.
Okay, fantastic, because I want to get to all these callers. We're coming to your calls next, and more of what his sources told him. I'm going to try to shut up and let him go through the rest of that list he's going over.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done's been right.
Doug Hagmann, director of the Northeast Intelligence Network, is our guest. Has a lot of amazing sources out there. You can find out more on his website. And in fact, give us your website one more time, and then I want to ask you any other tidbits that particular source gave you, other points you'd like to make before we start going to some of these phone calls.
Sure. Our website is HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com, not affiliated with any government agency, completely independent. And in terms of other information about from my source, of course, you know, he's hoping that none of this stuff happens, flat out saying, look, I got a family, I got, you know, I hope none of this happens. I hope I'm wrong, but I want to tell you that that it looks like everything right now is pointing toward this taking place this summer leading up to the elections. And he said, if for some reason we're able to get through this summer without any trouble whatsoever, and if we have elections, and this is not a guy subject to hyperbole, you know, by using that kind of language, but if we have elections, he said, watch very carefully between the time of election day and inauguration day. Watch that time period. Watch for false flag operations. The White House being shot at, that was a false flag operation. That was a trial balloon, he said. And this source, again, this is amazing to me. I had to double check this, and he confirmed it again. He says, look, there's something in the works. I'm not sure what it is. This is him talking, not me. He said, I'm not sure what it is. There's something in the works that there is going to be a false flag against either the first family, the first lady, or the president himself. And this is going to facilitate that and foment that racial divide, and also garner sympathy for the president. And I find that very hard to believe. Of course, he said this. He said, obviously there are no plans for anyone to be hurt, but it's certainly going to appear to be.
Remember a decade ago, whenever the Taiwanese president was about to be thrown out, so he staged a shooting of himself, and then it came out. I mean, it's so obvious they want to make themselves heroes.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, you know, look, Alex, I got a book, and I got to tell you this. I'm into old books. This book is a 1970 edition, Communism and the New Left. I picked this up on the Enronics in an old bookstore. This is their playbook. This is their playbook. This is what they're attempting to do. Everything that we're seeing happen today was done in the 60s. And it's the same people, except now they're in leadership positions as opposed to being in the protesting bargaining positions. It's incredible.
Well, that's why we play that, those clips talking about the weathermen wanting to kill 25 million Americans in the camps. So I guess they want to put like 50 million in there. And these people are running our government now, and they want to kill people. These are dirty, murdering scum. I mean, they're just filth.
And if they don't kill you, then they're going to have you building the bridges, filling in the potholes in the roads, and working for them. I mean,
look at the mayor of Chicago. He said on C-SPAN when he was White House chief of staff, he said we're going to make everybody serve people in high school in this new FEMA Corps thing. Oh
yeah, indeed.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and just a couple more things here. He said whether or not regardless of how the Supreme Court rules, expect that Obamacare is going to be well, I'm not sure of his exact wording here. It's going to go through. I mean, they're going to do Obamacare in one way, shape, or form.
Well, he's already started saying he doesn't care what the Supreme Court says.
Right. Now, he did say this, according to what he heard, that one or two of the Supreme Court justices should be a little bit worried, depending on how that decision goes. And that sounds pretty, Orwellian. But hey, I'm just telling you what I was told. And one last thing, I'm a contributing editor for CanadaFreePress.com. Judy McLeod, the founding editor, has some amazing contacts. She said, look, this is the first time she's ever heard.
Stay there. We got to come back in the third hour. Phone calls.
Have you been to InfoWarsShop.com lately? Express your inner patriot with these brand new InfoWars t-shirts. Say it loud with the InfoWars Bullhorn shirt. Or educate the sheeple with the Bill of Rights shirt. Grope the public's mind with the TSA shirt. And with this shirt, you can let the dark side know of the Rebel Alliance's power. All available at InfoWarsShop.com.
Doug Hagmann is our guest. He is the founder and director of the Northeast Intelligence Network. Has a lot of contacts in the FBI, CIA, intelligence. And I've been listening to him for years when he's on other radio shows and following his information. A lot of it has really turned out to be incredibly accurate, and the rest of it is coming true. I wish that wasn't the case, but knowing is half the battle, as they say in G.I. Joe, and knowing what we're facing, getting out of denial, gives us a chance to beat this. Look, I wouldn't be risking my life if I didn't think we could beat these people. Even if I end up getting killed or put in prison, you got to say no to this type of tyranny. My children have no future. And I can't just give in to fear even on threats to them. I just have to commit to this because these people are crooks. They're nasty crooks. And our forebears stood up to these type of people, and we've got to do the same. Look, some stations don't carry this first 5 minutes. Well, most of them do. But I want to come back and get into the other point that your sources and that writer that you were just mentioning was telling you. But let's start going to calls now and then get into the other points your sources have told you before you leave us at the bottom of the hour, and then I'll get into other news after that, folks. Let's talk to Michael in Florida. Michael, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good. What's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to know what you guys think, the average American voter, what we're going to get off of this election, because, you see the left-right thing is fake. And, pretty much if they don't give Ron Paul a chance, I think we should just take pretty much everybody who's in the House now who's not acting responsibly. We should take those guys to court.
Well, there are, look at Lugar losing in the primary, big establishment guy. There is a surge of patriot Ron Paul Tea Party types, the original Tea Party, who are winning elections at every level. So that's why the globalists want to accelerate their takeover, because as they said, they're worried about the counter-revolution, those of us that still want to have a free country. We are seen as the enemy, the extremists, the bad guys. Doug, your comments.
I totally agree. Look, the right-left paradigm, as you've pointed out many, many times, it's over. It's done. There's a continuity of agenda at play here. Our only hope is someone who will uphold the Constitution, get back to the Constitution, and who might that be? Well, we've got Ron Paul.
Well, you've got all these crooks in government who are connected to each other. If we can just start getting that information out. That's why they're arresting whistleblowers and start indicting and imprisoning them. They'll all run like a bunch of rats leaving a sinking ship. Because when the corruption's this bad, you're able sometimes to just flip the switch and it starts collapsing even faster. But instead, they just want to take over.
Yeah, indeed. No, you're exactly right. I mean, they act like cockroaches. I mean, in that case, and that's a pretty apt description, in my opinion.
Well, they're able to operate because of all these good men and women and private society, citizens, police, military, who are compartmentalized and don't know the big picture. Doesn't make sense to them, but they still follow orders. But once we expose what's happening behind the curtain, then people go, oh, that makes sense, and then it loses its power. I mean, look, I'm not trying to put a good face on this because this situation's dire, Doug, but I'm seeing an explosive awakening. What are you saying?
Oh, the same thing, but I'm also seeing, you know, there's still people that will just subject themselves to this unconstitutional search and seizure at the airports. This, you know, they're grope-a-dopes. They're, hey, everything's fine. This is necessary to keep us safe. There's still too many of those people. There's still too many of the people who believe in the theater that's being that we're being treated to. We've got to convince the people that this is not right, and not only convince them and educate them, but help them act, stand together. Look, we all have to. You know, I use the example like this: one person at an airport says, "No, I'm not gonna subject myself to this." They're gonna get arrested. Half a dozen, it's going to become a news report. You get everyone, what are they going to do? They're going to back down.
It was the opt-out. They knew people were going to say no that day. They didn't want to give us a chance to have a victory together because that would have built our confidence. So for a week, they stood down, showing they're powerless and that the terror threat was manufactured in that case. We'll be right back. I want to expound on that and then take calls. And he was just telling us last hour that one of his federal sources said it is a 3-alarm fire. They're freaking out over the re-education camp documents that we now have. The Army has responded and says, yes, it's real, and it's classified, and it should not be in the public domain, and that is all. And how they're going to process you with your Social Security number and take the political dissidents and lock your butt up. I mean, this is the confession of an illegitimate criminal group running a government. I wonder who leaked this, Doug, and then we're going to go back to phone calls. Because I could, you know, one level, I think they put it out to scare people, but on another level, they don't want people waking up. I mean, just like Obama said he didn't want the NDAA, but then he signed it, and then it turned out he had demanded the secret arrest provision. These are big wake-up calls for people.
Exactly. And, you know, it's kind of funny. I don't know who leaked that document, but I don't believe it was intended to be leaked just simply because, for example, on page 168, it gets into the vetting of religious leaders. I mean, this is some incendiary type language.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that. It talks about fighting militias. Say that again, though. Vetting the religious leaders, which is the clergy response team.
Yeah, in fact, my son had gone through this document with a fine-tooth comb, spent actually 2 nights going through this, and page 168, it talks about religious discussion groups will be offered to detainees as programs to educate them on specific aspects of their religion, to moderate them and to take the edge off of them.
Yeah, that's Romans 13, which they admit the feds use, and say it's of the Lord, take the shot, let us take your kids, it's of the Lord.
That's right. And they did not want this information out there. I mean, again, you know, by you breaking this, and I believe you did break this, okay? I mean, there were a lot of people. The pucker factor, as my source calls it, was incredible. To think that this was actually leaked, and I'd be surprised, by the way, if you get a call back from that from the spokesperson. But that's just, you know, it's great that you did that. But no, I mean, this was not supposed to be leaked out. And
let me ask you this question then: What do you think the military is saying about this document? I mean, I know they've called in and said they're very angry. Police have called in. I mean, I've noticed that the media. Here's my main question: why is the mainstream corporate dinosaur media will normally make fun of something I say, but then admit it's real? I've noticed complete silence on this. It is deafening, and it's really showing me just how many even alternative groups out there are controlled. The fact this is real, it's admitted it's real, and no one wants to touch it.
Well, simply because it's indefensible. How can one defend against this document? There's just no way to coherently engage in any type of coherent or legitimate defense. So why not just forget about it? Why not pretend it doesn't exist? The American people have a great way of just forgetting about everything. As long as, American Idol is on or whatever show of the night is on, we can forget about this. And of course now, with that underwear thing, that brand new underwear scare that we got, well, that gives us something different to talk about. That legitimizes the TSA, perhaps takes the attention off of this, or it'll be something else. But again, I got to tell you, this document was not supposed to be leaked.
Well, we need to force it out into the media, and now that the Army's responded and admitted and has said, yes, it's real, we have got to get people discussing this everywhere. This is a big issue.
Yes, it is.
Let's go to Gonzalo in Michigan. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up, you guys? I just like to say, you really make me laugh a lot, Jones, when you do your impersonations. It's really hilarious when, when it comes down to all this serious type things. And, DHS has been rolling around my city in their little white SUVs, thinking they're all bad with the little triangles on it and stuff. And I just, once they bring them checkpoints down here, to me it's on. That's when it's on. When they start groping people, like just all in the cities, and I know they're doing it already in other states, but to me that's when it's on. And people out here are so brainwashed, they won't even save water. I tell them to, they can't afford to stock up on anything. Stock up on water, and they still won't even do that. And it just really makes me sad.
Well, you've got a lot of the public scientifically mesmerized and drugged out of their minds, and I really feel sorry for them as this collapse accelerates. But I appreciate your call. Yeah, what about federal police? And then TSA aren't even police. They're not trained. They're not sworn. But they can come to a town like in New Mexico and say, grope everyone at the prom. We order you to. Out of their jurisdiction, not even real police. Violating the Fourth Amendment. It's martial law. It's what it is.
The TSA workers are not, as you point out, they're not commissioned law enforcement officers. In every state, there are programs that you must take to become municipal police officers. State police is a little bit different. These TSA workers, number one, have not gone through the proper background checks. I think you pointed that out.
Now they're admitting some don't even get them now because it's not getting the scum they want.
Well, that's true, and some of this is supposed to have been the background given to third-party companies like our company. We do background checks for Fortune 100 companies. Okay, that's not happening. It's not happening with these people. But Alex, if you can indulge me for a minute, one thing I did want to get to about this when I was talking about Gene McLeod and Canada Free Press, she had given me some information that dovetailed with some information that my source gave me concerning Fast and Furious, that being a potential problem for this administration. According to the information we have, Attorney General Eric Holder is not going to have any problems whatsoever from Darrell Issa and others, because remember, Holder was the key figure who vetted the Clinton administration's pardons. Remember that 180-minute, last-minute pardons back in January 2001, the beneficiaries of whom included former Weather Underground members Susan Rosenberg and Linda Evans, for example. There's debts owed that are not going to be paid, or that must be paid. Holder holds some chips, if you will, and as a result of that, ICE is not going to take them out. Okay, because I wanted to make sure I got that in there. Sorry if I got you off track.
No, we ran into a break last hour. I'm glad you remembered that. In fact, I want to go back to calls now, but what are some of the other things your sources are telling you that are important?
Well, just watch what Europe is doing. And he said this, too. Again, the initial conversation was on April 25th, I believe. Watch what Europe is doing. When you start seeing Europe crumble, or economically crumble, that is, you can start counting down. You've got you've really only got weeks, maybe months. Until it hits here. Watch very carefully what China does once they start calling in their debt, if they do. As far as military is concerned, this comes from a different source. There are Spetsnaz in this country. Now, we've always had mutual aid or cross-training of various foreign troops. That's always been there. And, of course, you know, the rebuttal to foreign troops in this country by the you know, neocons, if you will, or the people that say, it's normal. It's normal for this. No. We're talking about Spetsnaz troops, specially trained in detention and torture. I've gotten reports as well, Alex, about our military in Afghanistan. They are being trained in detention as opposed to combat. Now, who are they detaining? Certainly, they're not detaining. You know, it's a catch and release status over in Afghanistan. But according to the information we have, the training for detention is to be used here in this country, and our troops are being desensitized.
Well, that's what the document states. I mean, I've read public Army documents where they say all these wars are laboratories that they can then deploy domestically. It's just total treason. Brian in California, you're on the air. Welcome.
Oh, hey, Alex. Hey, Doug. How you doing?
Good.
Well, I just wanted to bring that up. I've read reports about Russian troops actually exercising in Colorado at the end of this month.
No, that's mainstream news. That's in CBS News, and people still don't believe it's real because, that's not possible.
Right, and that dovetails obviously then with a nice NATO meeting that's going on in Chicago, and don't forget the G8 being in their hardened bunker there at the Camp David. You know, it would be interesting to see maybe if some of those troops actually got left here, you know, and that dovetails maybe with Joel Skousen's prediction that, you know, Russia and China, the sneak attack that's predicting for the United States.
Sure, he's predicting that down the road, though. But, I mean, expanding on that, they use G20, they use NATO, any meeting to just say no protest in the city, no being out, arrest whoever you want, loudspeakers, black tanks, police with military. These are all little martial law training events, and they admit that's what they are. Doug, your comments on that?
No, you're 100% right. Just connect the dots. And that's what I've been told. Look, everything that this guy has done, meaning Barack Hussein Obama, everything he's done, and also Bush as well, and Clinton before him, start connecting the dots. They're all globalists. This is one big continuity of agenda program here. And, you know, if you think that it's anything different, you're crazy. But you can see the acceleration happening right now. You can, since the beginning of the year, you've got, you know, like you said, like we said, the NDAA, the various other executive orders, all of these things taking place, and things are accelerating at such a pace that you can barely keep up with
when they emerge and admit everything we've talked about is true, but say it's good for us, that means they're getting ready to use it. They don't uncloak until they fire. To use a cheesy Star Trek analogy, when do the Klingons uncloak? They've got to uncloak to fire. And just like a submarine has to service to launch its Polaris missiles or whatever, they're uncloaking because they're like, oh, there are troops and checkpoints and secret arrest. It's good. Don't run. We are your friends. So the military sees that and thinks, well, it must be okay. They're being public. Let's go ahead and talk to Mike in California, listening on 1340 AM KOMY. Mike, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi, I'll try to be as succinct as possible. Now, I've been going door-to-door volunteer out here in Santa Cruz for Ron Paul campaign 2012. And that supported me to be able to get exposed to a cross-section. Now, some of these Obama supporters believe in his rhetoric and so much that it seems like they would be really for that civilian army that he wants. Now, when you guys were talking a little earlier, I made a correlation between the Trayvon Martin case and how they showed pictures of him when he was younger that were released in the press, and our boy wonder president, a false flag attack on him. Do you see a correlation being set up in the collective, mind here for a sympathy if there's a false flag on the president for a movement to move towards that civilian army, even people volunteering for that against the, constitutional patriot movement on the grassroots level? What do you think?
All right, let me get a comment from Doug Hagmann on that. Doug?
Well, no, exactly right. The media is they're facilitating this. I mean, they're working for Obama. The media is working for Obama in this case, in particular, with respect to the racial division. As a matter of fact, according to the information I received recently, there were high-level meetings that took place between some of Obama's czars and heads of the 5 or 6 media conglomerates. Okay, they're planning this out, and it's everything is being staged. I was told, don't believe anything that you even see on the news, or don't believe what you see. I mean, it's again because it's all being staged.
Thank you, caller. Good points. Let's talk to Josh in California. Moving quickly, Josh. Welcome.
How you doing? I have a couple of questions for you and Doug real quick, if that's okay.
Sure, go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, my first question is, hey, recently I turned somebody on to you, and they stopped listening to you already, and it's only been a few weeks, and I asked them why they stopped listening to you, and they told me that they read an article on the interweb. Oh, the evil interweb. They said that you give us information about the New World Order and all the stuff that's going on, but you don't give us any solutions.
Well, that's not true, sir. I mean, again, these are the classic things. We're getting grassroots people involved, people running. We're calling for people to be prosecuted for Fast and Furious. We're calling to get the word out about this stuff so that they can't implement it, so there's debates in the military and police. I mean, talking about this, exposing it. There's a reason they're going after whistleblowers and people. So that's great. I mean, let people not listen to this show. There's other ones. It's not about me. It's about the information. It's not even about who breaks something first or who covers something. People always think, too, just because we're covering something that they might have seen somewhere else, that means that, you know, we didn't give them credit. It's all about territory and who's good and who isn't. Look, folks, it doesn't matter who Alex Jones is. This New World Order is real. We need to deal with it and not just spend all day critiquing what I'm doing. Lord knows I could do a better radio show, but nobody's perfect. But it isn't about Alex Jones. It isn't about Doug Hagmann. It's about what's happening in our society. Doug, comments on that?
Yeah, everyone wants to be so territorial, and of course the divisiveness in this is incredible. But it's planned. I mean, part of this is planned as well. You've got the people, the infiltrators out there, whether it's the Tea Party movement or the Occupy movement or whatever, they're going to go in there and they're going to cast blame and divisiveness and all of this. It's all part of the plan. The other people who complain are just complainers, and if somebody doesn't do it for them, well, then it doesn't get done. I mean, it's simple as that. But look.
Yeah, I mean, we're just breaking news and stuff here, and people say, well, where's the solution? All we do is say, in the Fed, restore the Republic, cut taxes, don't pay $20 billion to ship General Motors overseas. All we're talking, I'm exposing that these power companies are using Obama to shut down their competition. Knowledge is the power, the awareness of the crime. But I'm supposed to wave a magic wand. In fact, I've got one around here. I'm supposed to wave one here, Doug, and then everything is okay. Doug, thank you so much for spending time with us. I know you'll be back again soon. Thank you for your great analysis, and contact us anytime when you've got new breaking info.
Thanks, Alex. Have a great day.
That was an amazing hour and a half. More calls coming up. By the way, we're taking action against Bilderberg. Oh, yeah. Ask yourselves, what are you doing in this time of great challenge? What are you doing to unlock minds?